What would you do if the person you trusted most betrayed you in the worst way? Stick with me to the end because this story is about to leave you questioning. Could love really be worth it all? In a small village nestled between tall mountains and wide, green valleys, there lived a man named Olawale. He was strong, brave, and admired by all who knew him. Olawale was a warrior, a protector of his people. He carried a sword that gleamed like the sun and a shield that could withstand the mightiest of blows. Everyone in the village knew that Olawale was a hero, and heroes never had time for weakness or doubt. But even the strongest heroes have hearts, and sometimes those hearts lead them down unexpected paths. Olawale had a best friend named Ayodele. Ayodele was also a warrior, a man of honor and courage. They had fought side by side in many battles, sharing victories and defeats. Their bond was like steel, unbreakable and strong. Ayodele had a beautiful wife, Adebisi, a kind and wise woman who was loved by everyone in the village. She was known for her grace, her wisdom, and her ability to heal the wounded. People often turned to her when they were in need, and she always had the right words to make them feel better. But there was something more between Olawale and Adebisi, something neither of them could explain. It all started during a quiet evening after a long day of training. Olawale had been visiting Ayodele's home, as he often did after a day of battle drills. Adebisi was sitting by the fire, stirring a pot of stew, her face illuminated by the warm glow of the flames. "Why do warriors fight, Olawale?" she asked without turning to him. Olawale, taken aback by the question, leaned against the doorway. "To protect the people we love, Adebisi," he replied. "To make sure no one ever takes what belongs to us." "But does fighting always bring peace?" she asked softly, still staring. Olawale didn't answer right away. He had never really thought about it. His duty was to fight, to protect. But was that the answer to everything? The silence stretched between them. When Adebisi finally turned to look at him, their eyes met. Something passed between them in that brief moment. An unspoken understanding. Olawale quickly looked away, his heart racing. He had never noticed how beautiful she truly was. The way her dark eyes shimmered with kindness, the way her smile lit up the room. Adebisi, sensing his discomfort, smiled warmly. "I'm sorry," she said. "I didn't mean to make you think too hard." Olawale forced a laugh. "No, it's alright. Sometimes I think too much anyway." From that night on, something changed between them. It wasn't obvious at first. They still saw each other in the same way, friends, companion. But there was a quiet tension that lingered in the air, a connection that neither could deny. Olawale started finding reasons to visit Ayodele's home more often, staying longer than he needed to. And Adebisi, too, began looking at him differently, as if she saw him not just as her husband's best friend, but as someone more. One night, after Ayodele had gone to bed, Olawale stayed behind to talk with Adebisi. They sat by the fire, just the two of them, the crackling flames filling the silence between them. "Adebisi," Olawale began, his voice low and uncertain. "There's something I need to tell you." She looked up at him, her face calm and serene. "What is it, Olawale?" I think I'm falling in love with you," he blurted out, his heart pounding in his chest. She looked down at her hands. For a moment, Adebisi said nothing. Her eyes widened, and then her gaze softened. She looked down at her hands, as if searching for the right words. "Olawale," she said quietly, "I never wanted this. I never wanted to hurt Ayodele or you, but I feel it too." The words hung in the air, heavy and painful. They were both bound by their loyalty to Ayodele, but they couldn't ignore what was happening between them. Their hearts had found a path that neither of them had planned, And now they were standing at a crossroads. Over the next few weeks, Olawale and Adebisi's secret grew. They would steal quiet moments alone, sharing whispered conversation and stolen glances. They would touch hands in the darkness, their hearts racing with the fear of being caught. But unable to stop themselves, they knew what they were doing was wrong, but the love they shared felt like a storm they could not escape. Ayodele, however, was not blind. He noticed the distance between his best friend and his wife. He saw the way Olawale's visits became less frequent, the way Adebisi's eyes would linger a little too long when Olawale spoke. A deep unease began to grow inside him. Something was changing, something he couldn't explain, but he could feel it in his bones. One evening, Ayodele confronted Olawale. They stood outside the village, the moonlight casting long shadows on the ground. "Olawale," Ayodele said quietly, his voice steady but filled with a hidden storm. "Tell me the truth. What is going on between you and Adebisi?" Olawale's heart skipped a beat. He opened his mouth to deny it, but the words died in his throat. He couldn't lie to his friend. "Not anymore." "Ayodele," he paused, searching for the right words. "I never meant for this to happen, but I love her." Ayodele's face turned pale, his hand clenched into a fist at his side. "You love my wife?" he whispered, the hurt in his eyes deeper than any sword wound. "You have betrayed me, Olawale." "I never wanted to hurt you," Olawale said, his voice cracking. "But this is something I can't control." Ayodele turned away, his eyes filled with rage and heartbreak. "This is not just a betrayal, Olawale, this is war." And so, the bond of brotherhood that had once been unbreakable began to crumble. Ayodele, driven by anger and betrayal, gathered his warriors for a battle against his best friend, the man who had once fought by his side. Olawale, heartbroken but determined, prepared his own men for the fight. The day of the battle arrived. The two armies faced each other on the battlefield, the air thick with tension and grief. Olawale and Ayodele stood at opposite ends, each knowing that the other was once a brother, but now an enemy. The sky was heavy with clouds, as if the heavens themselves mourned the loss of their friendship. They fought with all their might, each blow a reminder of what they had lost. Olawale fought for love, the woman who had stolen his heart. Ayodele fought for honor, for the betrayer that had shattered his world. But in the end, it was not the sword that determined the outcome. It was the breaking of a bond that could never be repaired. As the battle raged on, both men were struck down, their bodies lying side by side on the blood-soaked ground. The village mourned the loss of two great warriors, two men who had once been brothers, but whose love for woman had led them to ruin. Now Adebisi stood alone, torn between the man she loved and the man she had married. She looked down at the two fallen warriors, her heart heavy with grief. Her love had caused so much pain, so much destruction. Was it worth it? And so, the story leaves us with one question. If you were Adebisi, what would you have done? Would you have chosen loyalty to your husband? Or would you have followed your heart? The choice is yours. What path would you have taken?